Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Quantum Eraser, Sleeping Warrior, Paul Hall, and I think that's it in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. Welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, Discord popped up. Awesome.
Morning, Chocolate.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. And morning to everyone who I've just managed to hustle off mute in Discord. Any signs of physical Earth curve edges, formerly known as a geometric horizon?
Not from where I'm standing.
Only in the math, not physical anything.
Any more? Any more for any more? Earth curve. Main point of this discussion.
I think they lost their Earth curve.
Go on, Ed. Clearly not. Go on, Chris.
The parent horizon.
Apparent. Not their geometric horizon. It's not apparent. Can't see it. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, both sides agree. They don't feel the Earth motion whatsoever.
And one side is supposed to have this effect that we're supposed to see to prove it, but doesn't. So it'll tell us how we don't see that effect that's supposed to prove that we're spinning. Yeah, we don't have that.
Yeah, we're supposed to have 15 degrees an hour of the Earth rotating underneath the inertial reference frame, which would be the reference frame you are in should you leave a claim to be spinning Earth. Now, by leave, I mean anything that you are observing from the ground as it is claimed to spin would appear to deviate from its straight trajectory. That would be Coriolis effect. This is asserted by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who asserts that a ball is kicked from a football field and goes through the goal because the Earth rotated underneath at 15 degrees an hour. That would be an effect of Coriolis, claimed to prove Earth is spinning underneath at 15 degrees an hour. However, if Earth is spinning underneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour, then flights travelling west would have their flight times reduced, because as they travel towards their target destination, the Earth would be rotating underneath them. Obviously, this does not happen, because Earth is not rotating underneath, as claimed to do at 15 degrees an hour, or we would see the effect of Coriolis effect. The fact that it's asserted by priests like Neil deGrasse Tyson in things that have a half a second hang time, same goes for snipers, it's just their way of convoluting the fact that we don't actually see this effect. That would be the effect of a hovering helicopter or drone or hot air balloon having Earth rotate underneath it at 15 degrees an hour. We do not observe this. Earth is not rotating. There is no claimed demonstrable proof of Earth's rotation underneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour because Earth is not rotating. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, wait a minute before you move away from that,
Sure.
Nathan.
Is there any evidence that hurricane winds are standing still or moving in a straight line?
Why do you ask? Because that's not Coriolis effect.
Well, right, exactly, because but they're saying the Coriolis effect is what causes hurricanes, so you have to have them either moving in a straight line or standing still to have Coriolis, right?
Coriolis effect would be you observing something travelling straight seeming to curve because you're rotating underneath it. That effect is nothing to do with wind. You don't observe curved trajectories of wind that are actually straight because you're rotating underneath them. Hurricanes, in your example, have an actual spin direction. It's not an apparent deviation because you're rotating underneath them. That's preposterous. Hey, Travis. Hey, Arwin.
Hey, you got a
Hello. What
Hello.
up?
Hello. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity. The
Gas go
reification
down the
fallacy.
room.
The reification fallacy that is gravity.
The force that's not a force, law of non-contradiction.
Well, shall I get my little Musa meme? There we go. Check it out. I'm not saying gravity is a force, but you can think of it as a force. I said to Anthony after he presented this, the actual quote is worse, because he explicitly states, gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. That was the actual quote. To play on the aliens thing, though, do you want to explain it, Anthony? Sleeping Warrior. Sleeping Warrior. Come in, Sleeping Warrior.
Wake up!
Any single viable hypothesis from... Oh, go ahead, Sleeping Warrior. Perfect timing.
Sorry, I was making a coffee. What was the question?
The context for why you've changed the explicit statement that gravity is not a force to, I'm not saying gravity is a force, ...
Oh, because of the Ancient Alien guy. Because it's comparable to the guy from Ancient Aliens saying that, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. That's essentially what the ballers are being compared to, because that is the same thing. He's not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Yeah, Musa said, it's not really a force, but you can think of it as a force. It's directly comparable. You are as dumb as the guy from Ancient Aliens.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
Clearly sends us.
We need to add to that. You know that list of astronomy, whatever. What is the list? Astrology, astronomy. What was the list?
Astrophysics.
Cosmology.
Yeah, we need to add. We need to add. What's that job that PhD Tony calls himself? Does he call himself a biological physicist? Is that what he calls himself, or something like that? We need to add his job title to it because he's a scientist.
He's a geophysicist. So we already got geology in there. The extended list is paleontology, archaeology, anthropology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is. And yes, I'm still laughing my ass off. Theoretical physics. We only limited it.
So let's just be clear.
A geophysicist is basically
Jesus
all
Christ,
physicists, right?
Let's just be clear, though.
We got the list.
Let's
Thank you, though, QE.
people that-
You're getting rumpus, but thank you for the list, QE.
Yeah, let's just
what possesses people, right, to just jump in? What fucking possesses you to do that?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
You would never do that, right, Huey?
I can't get it, Arwen. What the fuck?
Oh, come on, no swearing. Shout out to Cleary. He says, 10th man, you do understand.
Hey, Cleary.
Every time I start talking, I'll just say, hey, Arwen, just shut the fuck up, okay? And then when I'm done, I'll say, go ahead.
No swearing, please.
My
Live show.
word.
Hello, live show.
John, you've had your mask on too long. You seem to be suffering the effects of a...
Don't poke him. My God, Sleeping Warrior could kill you. Try and calm him down.
Don't poke me.
Nathan, I think it's a good time to say what you were going to say about Arwen on the last few shows.
I'm in the middle of housekeeping. What's going on? Suddenly it's time. And now,
this is not Arwen shaming hour. So shut the fuck up.
It wasn't. It was a compliment.
You wasn't going to do that, Owen.
Oh God, things are descending fast.
Compliment. I'm going to take it as an insult.
This escalated quickly.
No, what I said,
Literally, it's
Arwen,
freaking hot out
what
here,
I
so-
said, Arwen, was Nathan, prior to you coming in the pre-show, was raving at your last few shows how concise your sentences and arguments were. So I was just reminding him after John berated you to uplift you. And then
we interrupt this housekeeping session for an Arwen ass-kissing session. Can we get on with housekeeping?
I didn't ask for this, okay? I thought I was getting attacked.
You weren't. You were actually getting a very serious compliment. But I don't care right now in the middle of housekeeping. Oh, this is never going to end.
Just move on.
Proper handbags today. What the hell?
Let's just finish up after housekeeping.
Okay, ladies, can we all settle down? Right. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Just P waves and S waves, and they're not possible on any other shape Earth, apparently.
I still don't know what that means.
Good, just keep it that way. That's the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably more concise that you don't know, because once they start talking and drawing diagrams and all that, it's very persuasive. It convinced me, a diagram that tells me everything.
The bottom line is it's not accurate. So when they used it with the Kola deep borehole out in Russia, they used that method and got it wrong. So you want me to understand and accept that when they're digging an 8-mile hole, they can get it wrong, drastically wrong. But what they know based on the exact same method, what's at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with a radius of 59 miles? No. That's just nonsense.
Yep.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Yeah, just go outside, Nathan, and breathe.
That would be evidence of containment. Without the container, there would be no gas pressure. So that's quite the contrary.
Where is the container then, Nathan?
Pardon?
Where is it, and why has no one ever seen it?
Don't know, but I know it's an antecedent-consequent relationship to have gas pressure.
Yeah, so is gravity. Gravity holds it on, Nathan.
No, it doesn't.
No, gravity's not a force.
No.
It's not
You
holding
know
anything
better
to
than
anything.
that, Tony. You know that even if you would assume that gravity was a force, it still would not be able to hold the gas pressure, on the Earth in the face of the entire outer space universe.
That's
I'm just illustrating how absurd the argument is. That's all.
Hold on, that's a good point, Arwen. Because 8 to 10 months ago, let's throw Sleeping Warrior under the bus a little bit. So he was a little bit less advanced with this argument, and QE was, I'll throw it on him rather than me, was asserting that you can have your Newtonian and your Einsteinian gravity at 100%, 200% force. It's still not going to overcome entropy. And your criticism back then was to say, why are you allowing them this when I'm debating with them about the reification fallacy that is gravity when I let them beg the question? So now, today, do you understand the concept of saying, regardless of what your not actual force is or is not, it's still not overcoming entropy?
Yeah. I just don't like giving them gravity just for the sake of conversation, even though I encourage begging the question. I just don't like giving them gravity because it's my pet hate. You can't have gravity.
Right. Yeah, but at the time, right, I just hate begging the question. Right.
I know.
So
I know, and I agree. Because I know that you don't like begging the question, and I tend to like begging the question. But I'm not going to beg the question with gravity. You can't have gravity.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. It's good for you, right? It's good for the goose,
I know,
but not good for the gander.
I know.
But that's not fair on the ballers because they can't have one question begged without the other. So
I know, you're right. It's being hypocritical, Arwen, and I completely agree.
Yeah,
Arwen just likes
Arwen.
Sleeping Warrior just likes the fight.
Yeah, but the P in the modus
right.
tollens, we are allowing the begging the question in the proper logical way. And they still
We'll
don't
beg
get
the question when we dismantle it with logic. Yeah, no worries.
I think I get this. So it basically comes down to Tony just likes to really start the attack once gravity gets topped on the table, basically.
Yeah,
That's the moment he likes to strike, right?
Yeah, the minute someone says the G word, right, that's when I wake up.
Right.
Do you know, I've got to give Spurs a shout out. He was on Red's Rhetoric last night. Now, I've not watched it, but he was on also Fight the Flat Earth a night or two before, and I've watched most of that. Spurs is on fire at the minute, Nathan. Have you watched?
Yeah, I keep up with Spurs. Spurs is ace. He is on fire.
He's doing really well.
There's a load of people at the moment. It's really encouraging, the amount of people. Mitch, Spurs, Arwin got a compliment before he got here. We won't get too into detail because his head will explode.
Well,
but yeah,
what's even better?
People are on fire.
Yeah. What's even better is Spurs rang me last night and he says to me, he says, right, I've got a problem. I says, what's that? He says, when they talk about what was it now? He was talking about open systems and open and closed systems. He said, second law of thermodynamics only applies to an isolated system. And I says, yeah. He said, well, how do I get around
that?
What do you
mean, yeah?
Open system?
Oh God! What do you mean? You said yeah?
It's the opening line, isn't it? In the definition that they cite, it applies to an isolated system. And Spurs has never come across this before. And I said, okay. I said, well, because his question is, well, what does it do in an open system? And I said, well, what do you think it does any different? And he said, well, they say it only applies to an isolated system. And I said, okay, well, what does it do any different in an open system? He said, yeah, but why does it say isolated system? I said, because if it said open system, it would imply that isolated systems aren't covered. So it says isolated systems so that they are covered.
That's wrong.
Said, but the reality is, it's the same in both.
That's wrong. That's incorrect. So there are no isolated systems in the same way as there are no ideal gases. But you have ideal gas law described with ideal gases. Well, why? Well, it's to simplify it so it can be described in more broad terms, in a more understandable way. The same applies to the second law of thermodynamics. You're describing it with an isolated system. Well, what are you describing? Well, the second law of thermodynamics is a natural law. It's describing what happens in nature. It's just a description. But to simplify the description of what happens in nature, they use an isolated system. Now, if you look into what it actually describes in the second law of thermodynamics, or if you bore yourself as I have done with hours and hours of endless MIT lectures on the second law of thermodynamics, they rigorously define what and how it applies to each of the systems when it's applicable. So open and closed systems exist in nature. Isolated systems, while they do not exist in nature, doesn't mean that the description of an isolated system, to simplify how this law of nature applies by way of verbalization, doesn't suddenly mean that because the verbalization of the natural law applicable always in nature utilizes something that simply doesn't exist, that means that the natural law doesn't apply to an Earth that's in a sky vacuum, which is essentially what they're saying. The natural law is described with an isolated system, and no such system exists, therefore the natural law doesn't apply. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, that was a conversation killer.
As I say, the same applies to ideal gas law, describing how gases behave. Well, are all gases the same? No. Are they all equal? No, of course not. But you need to be able to describe these things in general terms as it generally applies to gases. Yeah? That's ideal gas law. Well, show me an ideal gas. Oh, there aren't any. Oh, so this doesn't apply to gas then? No! You're just a moron. Not you. The person who said that to you.
They need it to be that, correct?
They need it not to apply to their Earth. So this natural law, applicable in nature always, inviolable, that's the second law of thermodynamics in this case, is described, well, descriptions aren't causing things. Descriptions aren't events. They're not the event itself, it's just the description. The description involves a dumbed down, if you will, system. An isolated system. Well, there aren't any. There aren't any isolated systems like there aren't any ideal gases. Does that mean it doesn't apply to gas? No. Does it mean it doesn't apply to the Earth? No. Nathan. Absolutely applies. It's a natural law. Their Earth is Nathan. An open system.
Sorry, Nathan, I posted a picture that might help in your semester.
Okie doke. Or is it in Ballbusters?
Master.
It's not come through.
I'll go refresh. Yeah, it's true here.
Oh, it's not come through to me. Well, hopefully it'll come through in the next couple of minutes while I cover the last housekeeping question.
Okay.
Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
Definitely not.
Black Swan.
Do you have something you wanted to present, Arwin?
Oh no, I was just looking into isolated systems to refresh my memory. It used to confuse me a lot when that was first brought up. But an isolated system could be like a terrarium, right?
No, there are no isolated systems.
A terrarium is usually, bro. A terrarium is usually made of glass, right?
Right, but that isolates it, and only light can get in.
Yeah,
that's energy.
Yeah,
so
would that be
therefore,
energy?
Therefore, closed. So open system is open to matter and energy. Closed system, no matter will escape, but energy can transfer. Isolated system, neither matter nor energy will transfer. No such system exists.
Oh, right. Okay, so that is a closed system then.
Yeah, it's a closed system. Correct.
Like a terrarium.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Then I switched them around in my head. I don't know why.
You can think of it as an isolated system. Nudge, nudge.
He needs to be more specific. If it's a terrarium, does it have a lid on it, or is it open at the top?
I just assumed he was talking about the liquid in the terrarium anyway. So yeah, you're right, Paul. That would need to be defined if you were saying whether or not it was open to the the state change. So gases are going to expand out of that chamber, is what you're saying, right, Paul?
Right, because then it would be even with water in it, if the terrarium's got, if there's no lid on it, it's an open system. It's not a closed system.
Yeah. Okay. Granted.
Nathan, there's a second picture I sent you too.
Well, what if I would suggest that the realm might actually be an isolated system if all the energy is inside of it, the lights and all that, the daylight even, if it's all inside of the system and there is a barrier because there's gas pressure and there's no indication that there's anything beyond the barrier that you can even get there, then maybe it is an isolated system after all, this realm. But yeah, we don't have all the data.
Yep, that's special pleading.
Well, even either system, whether the universe, as the Globers say it, or even a closed system within the flat Earth realm, or a so-called enclosed realm, is still either way. You don't know. It could be both systems could be open it could be a closed system, but the energy's still coming in. But of course, I guess that would violate the second law of the first law of thermodynamics. If energy can't, well, no. Oh no, I have to think about that one.
You don't. What you're saying is it could be isolated. This description of a conceptual system used to describe a natural law. We've invented this concept of an isolated system, though, to give a description that only applies to open and closed system. So it's back to reifying things outside of their convention. So the convention of an isolated system is really only used in this context to describe something that does exist in nature. So to therefore say, well, let's work outside of this convention and say, well, maybe we're in an isolated system. Well, maybe. Okay. Well, maybe we're inside a giant chicken. That's possibility, but I don't think it's true. But we definitely know we're in a closed system. And the reason we know is because we have gas pressure. But beyond that, no offense to you, Paul, I don't care. Is it isolated? Well, that's a convention that we've invented.
Right.
Oh yeah, and then my only point was that we don't really know if this realm, as Erwin would call it, in either direction you go, either heliocentrism or the flat Earth, is a true isolated system. We don't really know for sure.
Well, we know it's closed,
we don't
though.
have all the data.
We don't know. Okay, so if for the sake of argument, let's make a few assumptions. Let's assume the sun is a physical thing and it's generating energy. But we don't know if that is coming in from outside and exists outside our realm, as you describe it, or inside. So we have no idea. So what you're saying is, well, if it's outside, well, that would imply obviously we're in a closed system, and that applies to all the same rules and laws that we experience anyway. However, what happens if the sun's inside our realm and there's nothing at all coming in from the outside? Well, that would make it isolated. That would make it just like the convention we use to describe closed and open systems in terms of how entropy applies. Well, yeah, maybe. But are you going to find that out? I would say no.
Well, not anytime soon anyway, you know. Let's first find the barrier.
Let's first accept that we're in a closed system because we've got gas pressure.
Right, yeah, we still have to get past the globe religion part first, of course.
Yeah, we've got to get past numpties that don't accept that the lectures that go on daily in universities across the plane about this law of nature, they don't accept it because it utilises a convention of an isolated system to simplify the law. Based on that, they reject natural law. I've heard it said many times. Oh, well, if you read the first line of what Wiki says about the second law, it describes isolated systems, and we're not isolated. Well, okay, what are we then? In your system, it's open! Open to a vacuum! Now, all the rest of the stuff that it is describing, they ignore entirely. Because what? We're not closed to both the transfer of the air that we're breathing to space and the energy from their presumption that we've got a sun out here in space. So because it's not this one, it's actually this one, where both matter, that would be air, and heat can both leave the system of Earth, because it's open. They say, oh, well, because it's not completely sealed to everything, it's actually open to everything. That means the natural law that describes how gas would expand, occupy all available microstates, that law doesn't apply anymore. Even though it's taught to university students all over the plane. That doesn't apply because it's not isolated. Earth, that is. My version of Earth is just completely open to a sky vacuum at 10 to the minus 17 torr. Therefore, all of this black area here is an available volume for all the gas that resides on the top surface of this ball to not fill, because it's not completely sealed off, isolated as described in the law. So according to them, unless it's isolated, that law doesn't apply, even though there aren't any isolated systems to apply it to, and therefore why the hell would it be taught to anybody ever if it's only applicable to a system that doesn't exist? It's absolutely absurd. They're just thick. Globeheads, you're thick. If you think this natural law doesn't apply because it's described with isolated systems, that makes you moronic.
I just thought of something though, Nathan. Even in their heliocentric model, if the universe is expanding, the universe is trying to fill all available microstates if it's expanding. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I've got to reify the lights in the sky into an ever-expanding soup of nothingness in the case of what they describe the universe as. I just see the sky now. I find it very difficult to conceptualize heliocentric bullshit now. When I look up at the sky, I don't picture vast expanding universe into another expanding nothingness that doesn't exist yet by way of it trying to, convolute itself into a description with entropy. I can't even fathom that, Paul, if I'm honest.
No, I get you. None of it makes sense, but if you think about it logically, though, that's what they have to be saying. The universe is expanding to try to fill all available microstates. The universe itself is. It's expanding, keeps moving, keeps growing.
Right, so the universe, the 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum that is outer space, that's what the globeheads think that they've got when they crick their head up to the sky. That is supposed to be expanding, and you can kind of parallel that with the occupation of all available microstates as described in the second law of thermodynamics. And yet, the gas we breathe here on Earth, where natural law absolutely is applicable, that's not expanding into the expanding universe that's expanding into something that doesn't exist yet in their rhetoric. That's what your sky is if you're a fundy globehead. That's how your sky is to you. With Star Wars going on in it, right? It's just absurd to me now. That concludes the housekeeping. Not bad little session. Half an hour on housekeeping. I like it when it's about that length. Half the show on housekeeping. Excellent. Thank you for all the memes and stuff. Not memes, diagrams, 10th man. I did have it up, by the way, Paul.
Yeah, we got.
Yeah, I got it up for 10th man.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't the only one doing it because I feel isolated.
Boom, boom.
No
Nah, you're
puns.
just closed-minded, Ned.
Mean no puns. It's not your show. Travis has got a show now, by the way.
This is an open forum, Travis.
Travis has got his own show, so check him out. The Plain Truth is the name of his channel. Does a lot of broadcasting, debates with people. Also goes out, takes his own observations. So be here or be sphere for The Plain Truth. That's Travis's channel. Say hello, Travis. Epic.
Yeah, I could count on Travis to be my personal pun troll.
Pun troll.
Yeah, pun troll. Because I have no control for my pun troll. Travis keeps me in check.
What?
Never mind, Arwen.
Ah. So you are there.
I'm always here.
So, Nathan, it's time to say what you were going to say about Arwen in the last few shows.
Okay, you've been desperate for me to compliment Arwen for some reason. We were just saying that you've been on fire, on point, very concise with your interjections, Arwen. As in, prior to this compliment, we would describe you as interjecting with a sarcastic baller retort, just to get a laugh. Whereas of recent days, you've been more cutting and concise in terms of your actual concise flat Earth rebuttal, if you want to call it that. That was the long and short of what we were talking about. When there was an argument, you were like, "Don't insult me! I'm not here for that." That was what actually we were describing about you, how well you were doing. But there we go.
All right. Well, that was actually in response to what John. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, I want to modestly agree in the sense that I have really tried to do my best to just push it, crunch it, get it better, do more, advance in my insight and in my oratory abilities. So yeah, I'm glad that it has borne noticeable fruits.
Well, you were compared to
Very
chocolate,
glad.
which is high praise.
Sorry, what?
I said you were compared to chocolate, saying that's high praise.
Compared to a chocolate saying?
Typically, chocolate will interject with like a concise summary in about 5 words, or a demolition of someone's argument in about 3 words. Well, that's the similar sort of thing. You were compared to that, and I'm saying it's high praise. Can we end this?
Right. Yes.
We've
enough Arwen asks.
Is this your doing, 10th man?
No,
My
we
doing.
just raised you.
Was this
No.
because I
level of a
apologize to you?
No,
after
I brought it
yesterday?
up. No, it's me. My
you
doing,
brought it
Arwen.
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
How
once
proud
you,
are you today, Arwen?
What?
once you were, oh my gosh,
Sorry, am I interrupting?
no, nothing. That's not normal. I mean, it's
I think Google's screwing up or something.
oh,
It's been- Yeah, no, seriously, I think I can't hear sometimes.
Okay, well, while you figure it out, I'm going to shout out Rob Wiggles. So shout out to Rob Wiggles for the super chat. He says, "Super chat smashed." Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Yeah, it's dropping and rejoining. I think he's having issues with G Plus actually.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, much clearer.
Yes, cool. Yeah, sorry, it's weird, man, the sound. Sometimes other people's sound just seems to drop away unexpectedly, and sometimes I think I'm not heard. I don't know what it is.
Back onto the subject of how quickly the information that was disseminated in 2015 in terms of the debate between the Rumpus and Quantum Eraser. Now that level of information, I think it's taken about 5 years, but it has crept up on more people in the community. So as we've given Arwen and Chocolate and everyone else on the panel a lot of compliments, let's pick someone else, which is Mitchell from Australia. So when I listen to his videos, I just smile from ear to ear because everything he says is just spot on. You know, he's demolishing the argument. When he is getting into what seems like a bait style argument with these star rotations, it seems like bait to just beg the question. He's there with a precursor to it saying things like, well, notwithstanding the fact that space is fake, and here's why, you couldn't have these star rotations. You're like, perfect. So to hear people like Mitchell, he's not part of the panel, right? He's not on the show. I don't think he's ever even been on. saying things like that. It just makes me smile. And
Did
back
you
in the
see
day,
Taboo Conspiracy's comment under his video?
didn't. No, go on.
So obviously he's doing the rounds at the minute because he's getting high praise for pointing out the comparison with the stars point, right? So Ben had put a message underneath saying, "Well done," or good video, or something along them lines. And I put underneath, "We've taught him well." Ben, smile.
That's worthy of another shout out. So Taboo Conspiracy 2 is Ben, who we're referring to now. And just another, Ben has always been on fire though. That's not like he's suddenly gone up some steep learning curve. Ben's always been like that. He's always been right on the cutting edge. More so than me. Shout out to Taboo Conspiracy. Subscribe today. Same goes for Mitchell from Australia. So subscribe today. And Spurs, under no pressure. He got a shout out, didn't he? Why not? Spurs Schemo, under no pressure. He's on fire. Arwin, Flat Earth Early Bird, goes out before this show. He's on fire. Travis, you've got lots of shout outs today. Lots of people to subscribe to if you're a newbie. Got a big panel today for some reason. Lots of YouTubers. How you doing, Paul? How you doing, Chocolate?
Forget 10th man dishes.
Yeah, definitely
Food
YouTuber,
for
10th
thought.
Food for thought.
Yeah, he's not getting a plug. It's not Flat Earth related.
I make flapjacks. Come on, man.
You say you do. I think it's all CGI. It's your wife doing it all.
That's it. It's an isolated cooking show.
Oh shit! Arwin got to Nathan.
Not a very enthusiastic Thursday afternoon, guys.
No,
Especially
it's
from
so hot. First, okay, let's get it going. Anybody in Discord want to talk about the Black Swan? Let's start there. Who do we got on Discord?
Yeah, I think the people on the Ball Earth side, I was listening to Sean Hawkins, for example, arguing against the Black Swan, and he said that it was debunked. It's been debunked so many times. And it's like, oh, really? How has it been debunked? Because I said to him, in messages, I said, can you explain to me what we say the Black Swan does? It proves. And he couldn't recite back what the claim is, but he was happy to tell people it's been debunked so many times. Sean Hawkins doesn't even know what the Black Swan argument actually is, yet he tells people it's been debunked. What a fool.
I think that's a more recent trends among ballers too, because remember, Ed didn't know which way the ball Earth was spinning, so they're all turning into our zombies, basically, becoming dumber.
Well, so let's have the ballers maybe explain how gravity can be a force and not a force at the same time.
There's only Ed here. There's no other ballers as far as I can see.
Well, that's a sign that it hasn't been debunked and they just left and they think they've debunked it.
Yeah, let's just remind the audience that nobody's been able to debunk the Black Swan. It's not something that they can debunk. It's just something they've got to accept, and they don't like it. But that doesn't mean it's been debunked.
Their rebuttal to it implodes their own model. They tell us that we cannot see the geometric horizon, in spite of the fact that to derive an R value, Al-Biruni is claimed to have measured that which they say we cannot see. That would be Earth curve, a geometric horizon, a sphere edge that blocks boats and buildings. We're told, based on the Black Swan being presented, we do not see a geometric horizon. That's Earth curve. We wouldn't expect to see Earth geometry. That's Earth curve. The geometric horizon only exists in Earth curve maths. That's Earth curve only exists in Earth curve maths. That's the rebuttal.
Or who cares?
I left the best to last. Sorry, Neil. The best one is the following. The P statement in modus tollens is a straw man. Now, that's the best one. It takes a little bit of explaining. The P statement in modus tollens is if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That was actually if P then Q, but I might as well give it the full rendition. But the if P statement is if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles. And they say that statement is a straw man. Now that statement is the assertion that Earth's a sphere. And they tell us that that statement, when we say, oh, we're happy to beg the question when we use modus tollens, because we're debunking your presumption of R in the logical consistency. But the P statement that the logical consistency is based on, i.e. when we say we are begging the question on their behalf, is the begging the question fallacy that is to assume a sphere Earth. And they tell us that that assumption in the P statement is a logical fallacy because it's a straw man. Why is it a straw man? Well, because you can't see Earth curve. It's a straw man to tell me that you can. That's what they tell us. That's one of their rebuttals, the best rebuttal. P is a straw man. What, if Earth's a sphere with radius 3959? Yeah, we agree. That's definitely a straw man. Only exists in the maths, only exists in the model. What's that? That's also your rebuttal too. Welcome to Flat Earth.
They just don't like it, Nathan. That's the problem.
At best, what you've done here is disprove the radius.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did. There it is. Black and white. You said it, mate.
That's worth going over.
You did.
So that was Mitchell from Australia. So Mitchell from Australia is in debate with a guy called Mr. Sensible. And Mr. Sensible here's the rendition in full of the Black Swan argument. And his reply was, at best, you would have debunked the radius of Earth. That was his response. Recorded and played back on snipped out clip by me and Anthony and several other people. Now, his response to that was to make a series, not just one, but a series of videos saying, I did not say that. And challenging Anthony to prove that he said that. And all Anthony did was just play back the recording of him saying it, while he simultaneously denied saying it on multiple occasions. Now, Phil Bell, he's also done that. Flat out denied laughing along to the assertion that water vapor's not gas. And we just play it out. Play out the recording of him laughing along and saying it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. Humiliating, embarrassing. But that's what happens if you've got a religious belief in absurd things like a sphere Earth. You'll make the most ludicrous declarations to an audience of people who can just play it back to you. So, Mr. Sensible, at best you would have debunked the radius of Earth. That's precisely what we've done. Utilised your begging the question fallacy that Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles and demonstrated that it cannot be so, debunking Earth's radius. What's that? You say you didn't say that? Let's play it back for you. Yeah, we did debunk R.
I don't understand. How does he even still have subscribers? Like, somebody like that will say something like that. Somebody like me will come in the next day and say it like 5 times, just making fun of him. And he will just say like, oh, I didn't say that.
He'll do it.
When he did that video, gas pressure without a container, and he used a big bloody pipe. And then he tries to argue, that's not a container for gas pressure. Yeah, it is the container that gave you the pressure, yet none of the ballers call him out on it.
Yeah, and he'll continually assert it, that his demonstration's correct, it's still at published. Same goes for Thunderfoot, who's just doubled down on gas balls, go down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash. That's what they do. They double down on their nonsense. Because if they assert it again and call us stupid, then that means they're right. So, flat earthers didn't understand me bonding gas, pouring it through some other gas when it's actually solid. They didn't understand that. So here it is again. That's what they do. Totally
and it's
part of their type. That's reverting to type.
It's the same with the rumpus. He now, because he knows that gravity is not a force, he now says that all forces are effects. And it's like, rumpus, you can't have an effect without a force. You need one to get the other. And he says, yeah, but all forces are effects. And they're not. Because if I punch somebody in the eye, then you get pain. So the force is the punch and the effect is the pain, right? Black eye comes later. But you can't have the force and the pain at the same. They're not the same. They're mutually exclusive. But Rumpus tells people that all forces are effects because he needs gravity to be a force for his model to work. Well, gravity's not a force, Rumpus, and it's not an effect. They're not the same. Mutually exclusive.
You want to read out your meme? I've got it up, Arwen. On mute.
It might be a good. How First Lily just decided. Hold on a second. We might actually have the discussion on what's the cause and what's an effect, and the difference between the two.
Are you serious?
Well, I mean, if he's saying it's an effect, not a cause, it's just an effect of things. So that's what the ballers are saying. Of course, it's Lily's saying it.
Well, to be fair, it's not the ballers, it's only the Rumpus at the minute. But if it catches on and they all start saying it, then we might have to address it. But for the minute, we can just isolate the Rumpus and laugh at Rumpus only, because everybody knows that a force is not the same as an effect. One's cause, one's an effect. They're mutually exclusive. A necessary antecedent of an effect is a cause, isn't it? You need something to cause it, otherwise it's never going to happen. So how does anything accelerate Newton's apple if it's not a force? It can't, can it?
I like how you say we might have to address this, and then you address it by basically saying the same thing in about 4 different ways, which is the only thing you can do. I'm not knocking that. But when somebody doesn't understand something as simple as cause and effect, it's like the one is not the same as the other. What can you do other than paraphrase it in 5 different ways, as you've just done?
Just remember, we're dealing with people who think straight is curved.
You got to read Retro Bill's super chat, Nathan.
At best, you have disproved gravity, space, Earth's radius, rotation, and curvature. But Riley's school notebook drawings prove the molten iron core. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Retro Bill.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nice one. Hey, Nathan, I got a star trail I did last night. It's a Master
cool.
B.
Master B. It's not come through yet.
Oh, cheapers.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's just come through. It has come through.
Now, did you take this from the International Space Station orbiting the Earth, or was it taken from your back garden?
I took it from the international backyard.
Because they look very similar, don't they? It's very difficult to distinguish which one's which.
Yeah, I'm stationary. I'm not moving a smidgen. Or else you can get it.
Okay, I'll make it a bit prettier. Just give me a second.
And how long was the recording? Was it like, it must have been 2 hours or whatever?
2.5 hours to get a 10-second clip that you can see here.
2.5 hours. Was this time lapse or was it long exposure?
It's the Star Trail mode on the P900.
Yeah, it must be long exposure, that, because it's not snipping them together, is it? It's continuous, right?
No, it's snipping them. It turns on, turns off, turns on, turns off. Takes.
Yeah, it's quality.
How long does it take for the ISS to go around the Earth again? How long?
90 minutes.
I'm loving all the satellites that go zipping past it in the picture as well. Like, look at them as like.
Can we, on the flat Earth side, try not to beg the question in our statements? No. The ISS does not go around Earth, right?
Yeah, he's playing. He's playing it in the. How can I put it?
Well, yeah, in begging the question kind of thing. But,
yes.
but even if you think about that for a second, it took you 2.5 hours, and you only got partial arc. You didn't get a full circle, right?
No, that's the key.
So if that picture of the ISS is a time lapse of the whatever Star Trails, they should have a full circle, not just partial one, right? You would think.
Well, it gets worse than that.
Oh God! So if we beg the question that it's in a presupposed orbit, falling around the Earth, 90 minutes taking a full orbital begging the question path, then unless, as Mitchell from Australia put it, it's doing barrel rolls through the sky, you're not going to get those circular motions. But we've got to assume it's in a presupposed orbital path in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum in order to figure out whether or not they'd be getting star rotations that are based on the polar rotation that we observe here on the ground. That's a lot of stuff to have to disclaim just to get into this argument. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but it gets worse than that if we're going to kill it within their paradigm. If I put that tripod with that P900 in the back of my truck, and I just went, say, 70 miles an hour, Now, the ISS is supposedly going 17,500 miles per hour. What kind of picture do you think I'm going to get after 2.5 hours?
A jiggled mess.
You can't travel to this light in the sky, claimed to be a tin can falling around a sphere Earth by way of presupposition in a sky vacuum. That light in the sky, wherever it may be, you cannot travel to put a tripod on it to film something. Because there is no version that they claim. The tin can version with the cameras pointing at the sets, that version of that light in the sky as a physical entity does not exist. It's just a light in the sky. Now, that light might go past and you can plot it in the heliocentric reification at 90 minutes for a orbit. But we don't have orbits. Nothing's falling around anything. And we don't have a sky vacuum, so there's no tin can in there to take pictures from. So the whole thing's nonsense.
It is, and that's the point. If you think about what I said, the only way that picture can be taken is the way I did it, on a tripod, on a stationary platform that's not moving. Yet they take it and they overlay it and say they got it from a second law of thermodynamics violation out of space on the ISS.
You just can't think in three-dimensional space, 10th. No flat earther can think in three-dimensional space.
Three-dimensional space? I can think in three-dimensional space without any trouble whatsoever. Do you mean you can't think in four-dimensional space?
Oh, well, four in that. Well, they normally say three, but yeah, four.
Well, if you give me time, I just might have a chance.
Boom, boom. Yeah, so pseudo-Ramonian four space, that would be length, breadth, depth, and time. That's four space. They say we don't understand four space. Yeah, well, that's because it's just conceptual and it has no bearing on reality. It's merely this mathematical construct that's been derived by a man called Einstein. Has no bearing on reality. It's pseudo, just some geometry that's been created to give some sort of plausible explanation to the movements of the lights in the sky by way of imposing this maths onto a heliocentric model that already existed. Wow, isn't Einstein wonderful? Well, no, because it doesn't give you an actual force. It's just maths. And the world that it's imposed on doesn't exist. So, no, it really bears no bearing on anything. Einsteinian mathematics of spending this force space. It's pseudo, by his own description. Pseudo-Ramonian force space. Length, breadth, depth, and time. That geometry. It's just conceptual. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was last year sometime when I talked to you guys about star trails. When I first started investigating everything about flat Earth, I saw some star trails from a photographic site. It wasn't YouTube, it was just a really good site. And the way they describe how they get star trails, I go, this is proof that the Earth is not spinning, because there's no way you can take this picture with the Earth spinning. And so it's always been one of the top arguments for me. And now that Mitchell did what he did, and we all have done over the year plus since I made that statement, it's now, we can form this into another housekeeping question in some way. This is an impossible task to do unless your tripod is stationary and cannot be touched or jiggled in any way to get those concentric circles.
Yeah, so the response from them is, no, because the ISS movement is nice and linear and it's nice and smooth, and as it's in its falling orbit, it can actually observe them in this way. And watch, if you look in my 3D graphics program with my orbits all presupposed and my sphere Earth all presupposed, and the trajectory of the ISS plotted really carefully, you can see that the lights that are moving by its vantage point actually do take a circular motion. It's not actually the same as a polar what would you call it, circular path that you'd observe from the ground. It just coincidentally looks like it because this is how the maths works out in the model where I presuppose that this thing is in a sky vacuum falling around a presupposed sphere Earth. So there you go, I've just responded to all of your concerns about the ISS not being able to acquire these circular lights that you see from these pictures. Well, I've addressed it all. And the whole time I did it, I was begging the question of a sphere Earth, I was begging the question of a sky vacuum, I was begging the question of orbits, but I still addressed your issue, didn't I there, 10th man?
No, you didn't, but nice try. In 90 minutes, you're going a full circumference, so that's impossible.
No, you're not.
To take that picture.
No, you're not. But way to beg the question, 10th man. My point is that in order to have this argument, you've got to beg the question.
Let's have fun. What speed is the Earth rotating at the equator?
It's not.
10th man.
It's not.
Well, hang on. So it's not rotating.
No.
Then why do I see the streaks on the Earth? Is that from the ISS moving?
The streaks of what? The lights that move as you film them.
when you see the space pictures of the concentric circles and you look at the Earth below, the way NASA puts it out, the Earth lights are streaking. So that's caused by movement. Is that the Earth moving or is that the ISS moving?
The ISS and the pictures that it takes are all fake. This is a subtle difference between the 2013, 14, 15 arguments presented by people like Math Powerland in regards to Earth from space. Now, Math Powerland's positioning in terms of that argument back then was you, the individual watching this right now, you will never get that vantage point. You will never go out to space and look back at the Earth as presented in these paintings. That's the positioning back then. Now the positioning is these pictures are automatically fake because the place they are claimed to have come from cannot exist. It violates natural law. Not you can't go to space because space is not real. So the difference between 2014 arguments and 2020 arguments in terms of what could be possible from the ISS is cut it off its legs. As much as we've praised Mitchell from Australia for highlighting this, and it's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you couldn't do it if you were on a bloody spinning ball Earth, falling around in orbit in a tin can in a sky vacuum. You wouldn't get those star rotations. But the points that are important are all the bits that Mitchell preceded that with. The bits that you're just disclaiming as, well, if it's falling at 17,500 mile an hour, well, you've got to beg that question, which leaves that in the mind of the person watching, 10th Man. I'm sorry to lecture you, but this is critical.
You're talking a whole different subject. I already agree with all that. What I'm saying is that, first of all, everything you said, I agree with, because I argue that point. It's in the violation, so those pictures aren't real. Now, that said, since I do take star trail photography, I know how it works. And then I say, look at the little trick they're playing on you, because we have three options here. One is the Earth is moving. Two, ISS is falling and moving, or the stars are moving. Now, when you do star trail photography, you need a very stable tripod, and it cannot move. So right there, I'm trying to say that in their fakery, they even blow it.
Fair enough. But I would cut you off at your legs and say, no, both of your options can be debunked before you get into giving them as an option. In other words, if Earth's rotating as one of the options, no, we'd have a 15 degrees an hour deviation, not demonstratable.
And I'm going to be that guy that says, no, 10th Man, you're wrong. I figured out how they could have done that if the Earth was a globe. Because if it goes around in 90 minutes, that means effectively the stars are going to go the other way. And that's...
What do you think I'm saying, Arvin?
Well,
yeah,
you said
you're now lending credence to 10th Man, and his point's valid. But it's only valid with all the disclaimers I'm moaning at him for not giving, instead saying, well, one of the options is
I already know you gave those disclaimers, so why would I give them again?
It's not for you. You are the canvas for the audience, 10th Man. Please don't take it personally. It's worth reiterating 10 times with you disagreeing. I'm glad of what's happening, but it's nothing personal against you, and I know you understand.
No, go ahead. Now that I know I'm the canvas, brush it over.
It's a subtle difference between how you're phrasing it, 10th Man, which is one of the options on the table is ISS falling around a presupposed sphere Earth with this 90-degree presupposed orbit and its 17,500 mile an hour trajectory speed. Well, if that's an option on the table, I'm going to step in and say, no, it must be phrased. It cannot be in a presupposed orbit, begging the question, falling around Earth. It cannot be travelling at 17,500 miles an hour around a sphere Earth, because, number one, Earth is not spinning. Number two, Earth has no Earth curve. And number three, the claim that it's taking these pictures from a region that doesn't exist because it's violating natural law will always take precedent to the assumption that it is falling around an Earth that's spherical at 17,500 miles an hour. And the pictures it could be taking if it was doing that wouldn't work because... I think everything that precedes it in disclaimer is much more important to stress to an audience than the debunking of the claimed spherical motion that they take from this place that does not exist. And that's always going to be more important to me. So with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Primary streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!